Revealed. How a billionaire CEO's surprising act transformed his gay son's life in 30 days. Rain pounded hard against the roof of Jason's diner, mixing with the clinking of dishes and soft chatter of his few regulars. Everything felt off balance. The diner, a cornerstone of his family's legacy, had stood proudly for decades. But now, as he squeezed ketchup bottles and wiped down counters, it threatened to collapse, just like his hope for acceptance from the world around him. He poured coffees while flashes of whispers sliced through the air like hot knives. Gay son, failed businessman. The truth stung, yet Jason smiled. He had always believed in hard work and perseverance, even when society didn't. But that night, as the storm raged, the unexpected happened. The diner's roof gave way, showering water and debris onto the faded linoleum. Heart-pounding, Jason stood frozen amid his fears. He had to save the legacy his family's heart, but how could he? With each gust of wind, his hopes felt as fragile as the diner's ceiling. In a moment of desperation, he pulled out his phone, hands trembling. Could he really do it? Reach out to Charles, his estranged father, a billionaire who had cast him away for simply being himself? Before Jason knew it, he sent a shaky message, pouring out his heart as rain poured outside. It was a call for help that knocked at the gates of silence built over years. The next morning, as gray clouds lingered, his phone buzzed. Charles surprisingly responded. Instead of the dismissive silence he feared, his father's words rang with urgency. A life-changing encounter with LGBTQ+ veterans had challenged Charles' tightly woven views on love and acceptance. Jason's heart raced with a mixture of dread and hope. Maybe, just maybe, he thought this could change everything. As Charles stepped back into their small town, he took in the familiar streets that echoed with his memories. The diner stood like a beacon, broken but vibrant, rich in stories and heart. Jason looked up from behind the counter, hands covered in grease, eyes wide with disbelief. Seeing his father sent a jolt through him. Was this just another promise that would break? For the next 30 days, the two men navigated an unwieldy path filled with laughter and tension. They worked side by side, fixing chairs, serving coffee, and sharing long pauses and quiet realizations. With each passing moment, the walls they built around themselves began to soften. Jason sensed Charles starting to peel back layers of his own beliefs, confronting the biases he'd let rule his world. "Sorry, I didn't know you. We're going through all this," Charles said one morning, a rare falter in his usually steely facade. Jason's heart flipped. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Days stretched on, filled with small victories like a shared joke over pancakes or advising a shy customer on their order. But setbacks lingered too. The diner remained half-repaired, pressure building like storm clouds. Jason couldn't shake the fear that acceptance and reconciliation were still out of reach. Could a father's love extend beyond the barriers of his own prejudices? As the month approached its end, Charles faced an unexpected ultimatum: make a choice between love and past biases. Would he finally embrace who Jason was? The air thickened with uncertainty, yet within that weight, the shimmering possibility of hope flickered. Would love prevail? Or was regret just a whisper away? The sun peeked timidly through the clouds the following morning, casting a soft light over the diner's worn facade. Inside, Jason's stomach knotted as he prepared for what might be the most pivotal day of his life. Charles had promised a decision, and the whole diner seemed to hold its breath along with him. Heavy silence enveloped them as they bustled between tables, the smell of frying bacon mixing with the bittersweet aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Each clatter of dishes felt like a countdown in Jason's mind, the ticking seconds whispering uncertainties. Would Charles really change? Would they have the relationship Jason had always longed for? Or was their newfound connection just a facade? As he wiped down a table, he looked up and caught Charles watching him, a blend of pride and pain flickering in his gaze. "You know," he started, swallowing hard, "I've been thinking a lot these past weeks. His voice was steady but soft, so different from the booming commands Jason had known as a child. Jason felt a rush of hope. He paused, hand resting on the edge of the table, waiting for the words his heart desperately craved. About what it means to be a dad, and what it means to be your father. I didn't understand, Jason. I was raised to think love had to fit a mold. His voice broke slightly, the fierceness melting into vulnerability. Maybe that's what I need to say sorry for. Charles continued. I thought you were wrong, but it's me who needs to apologize. I should never have turned my back on you, never. With each word, the walls Jason had built up around his heart started to crumble. A wave of warmth flooded over him, igniting memories of father-son fishing trips, laughter over board games, and the countless moments they shared before everything had changed. I wanted you to approve to see me, Jason admitted, feeling tears prick at his eyes. Charles stepped closer. I want to understand, he said, his voice laced with sincerity. I want to get to know the man you've become. Silence fell between them, but it was different this time. It wasn't the oppressive silence of past misunderstandings. It was pregnant with possibility. Jason nodded, feeling a smirk tug at his lips. So, you'll actually try? Absolutely, his father vowed. I have a lot to learn, but I'm ready. As they resumed their tasks, a new energy buzzed in the diner. Regulars celebrated little milestones, an air of hope glittering where doubt had once solidified. They worked side by side, and for the first time in years, Jason felt a warmth spreading between them that reached deep into his core. Later in the day, as customers trickled in for lunch, the phone rang. Jason, still buzzing from the unexpected revelation, answered. A voice on the other end was frantic, panicked. Jason, you need to come down to the town hall right away. It's about the diner. His heart dropped. What could have possibly gone wrong now? He glanced over at Charles, who had caught his eye, ready to lend his strength for whatever storm lay ahead. With a deep breath, Jason hung up the phone. Let us go, he said, urgency propelling him forward. As they made their way through the heavy wooden doors of the diner, every step felt laced with tension. What waited for them at Town Hall could either tear their newfound bond apart, or solidify it forever. And in that moment, the weight of unspoken truths hung heavy in the air. Would they weather this next storm together? Or would this be the moment that changed everything yet again? The town hall loomed ahead, a stone fortress bearing witness to many discussions and decisions that shaped their small community. Jason took a deep breath, the smell of fresh paint mingling with frustration. He could feel a knot tightening in his chest, like a ball of anxiety threatening to choke him. As they pushed through the doors, the commotion inside hit them like a wave. Town officials were gathered, faces flushed with urgency, voices cutting through the air like sharp winds. The mayor stood at the front, his expression grave, and Jason's stomach dropped further. Jason, a familiar voice called out. It was Sarah, one of the diner's most loyal customers. Her face contorted with worry. I'm so glad you're here. They're threatening to shut down your diner. Some zoning regulation, it's all a mess. What? Jason gasped, feeling his heart race. Shut it down? No way. We've been here for over 30 years. Charles placed a steady hand on Jason's shoulder, grounding him. Let us listen. We need all the facts before we panic. The mayor cleared his throat, commanding attention. We've received complaints about the diner's expansion plans. Allegations state it encroaches on public land. Jason felt a volley of disbelief wash over him. He and Charles had worked hard for years to create a space that welcomed everyone, a place of warmth and community. Now it felt as if someone was trying to snatch that very essence away. What do we need to do? Charles asked, voice firm but calm. The mayor leaned forward, a flicker of compassion flickering in his eyes. There's a hearing scheduled for next week. If you can gather support, we might be able to fight this. But you'll need to rally the community, Jason. Show them what the diner means. Jason looked around the room, eyes meeting those of several townspeople who had entered their lives at different points. Each familiar face brought memories and connections, shared meals, laughter, tears. But could he reach out and ask for their support at a time when doubt crept in so easily? Everyone here knows what the diner is about, he said, standing a little taller. We're not just a place to eat. We're a family. We're about love and acceptance. If we come together, we can fight this. The murmurs of agreement filled the room. and Jason noticed Charles leaning slightly away from him. A flash of miscommunication sparked in Jason's mind. Had he forgotten about Charles's broader perspective, the businessman, who had made hard choices to survive? The tension thickened, and Jason risked a glance at his father. Dad, don't you see this? It's not just about profits. It's about lives, about our community. Charles hesitated, and Jason felt his heart twist. They had just started to mend their relationship. Was this where it fell apart again? Charles began, voice fragile and unsure. I understand how important this is, but we need to think practically. Jason's head spun, feeling frustration bubbling to the surface. This isn't just about practicality. This is about love and connection. We can't let them take that away from us. A silence fell, thick and undeniable, as the reality of their drastic differences emerged. Jason fought the urge to scream. Would his father understand the deeper meaning behind their diner? The mayor's voice broke through, offering a lifeline. If you can arrange a meeting with the townsfolk, excuse me, gentlemen. The weight of the moment hung heavily. Jason felt the fire of determination rise within him, refusing to let fear drown out his hopes. You're right, Dad, he said finally, voice steady despite the storm of emotions. We need everyone on our side for this. It's time to show them how much the diner means. As they stepped outside, the sun shined brightly, illuminating the path ahead. Would they unite the community? Or would the diner become a fading memory? Jason glanced at his father, searching for reassurance. Would they rise as one, or would this moment push them further apart? The answer lay ahead, waiting to be discovered. The air felt heavy as they stepped onto the sun-soaked pavement outside the town hall. Jason closed his eyes for a moment, letting the warmth wash over him. It was comforting, but it did little to ease the weight bearing down on his shoulders. Let us organize a meeting tonight, Jason urged Charles, his heart still racing from the earlier confrontation. If we can gather everyone at the diner, we can share our story. They need to hear why it matters. Charles nodded, though his expression remained serious. I'll help with the logistics. But remember, we also need to present our case clearly. Emotions can't drive this. Jason felt a surge of frustration at his father's practicality. It's not just about facts. It's about why people come to us, Dad. It's about more than food. As they walked back to the diner, a chorus of voices echoed in Jason's mind, his regulars discussing their lives, sharing stories over coffee, and forming bonds that stitched their community closer together. The diner wasn't just a place, it was a refuge. Arriving at the diner, Jason felt a flutter in his chest. The familiar jingle of the doorbell brought a wave of nostalgia. He set to work immediately, arranging tables and chairs for tonight's meeting, hoping the sight of their beloved restaurant would spark inspiration in his heart. Hours flew by as the sun dipped low on the horizon. The diner transformed into a warm beacon of hope. Lights twinkled softly, and the scent of fresh pies wafted through the air. One by one, familiar faces arrived, each carrying their own brand of anxiety and resolve. Do you really think we can fight this? A voice quivered from the back of the room. It was old Mrs. Henderson, her frame small but her spirit fierce. Jason's heart ached at her doubt. We have to believe we can, he replied, pushing back the tremor in his voice. Together, we've created so many memories here. We can show everyone that this diner stands for community, acceptance and love. Gradually, the din of conversations rose. The more they spoke, the more hopeful Jason felt. He listened as stories unfolded, how birthdays were celebrated, how they came together during rough times, and how the diner became a second home for many. When it was his turn to speak, Jason took a deep breath. Staring out at their warm, encouraged faces, he felt their shared history bolstering his voice. The diner isn't just a business, it's a symbol of what we value. It's about family, and that includes all of you. He gestured to the buzzing crowd, his heart racing with energy. We need to remind everyone of that. The room erupted in applause, and Jason could see that his message hit home. But just as quickly, his gaze landed on Charles. His father's expression remained guarded, a hidden reluctance swirling beneath the surface. Dad, Jason called out suddenly, the words tumbling out before he could hold them back. Are you with us? A thick silence fell, and Jason's heart thumped loudly in his chest. This was a pivotal moment. Would his father rally behind him, or take a step back? The crowd turned, their eager faces waiting for Charles's response as time seemingly froze. And in that moment, Jason realized it wasn't just about the diner. It was about finding acceptance within his family, forging unity against the world outside. Charles's eyes met Jason's, and in that gaze, questions hung in the air. Would he step forward, or would he slip into the shadows of fear once more? Jason held his breath, waiting for the answer that would shape their future. As Charles finally began to rise, every eye fixed on him, Jason felt an electrifying mix of anticipation and dread. What would his father say? The answer could change everything. Charles gathered himself, his brows knit tight as if he were wrestling with something deep inside. The murmurs quieted, hearts racing in unison with Jason's. He began, the word trembling on his tongue. The crowd leaned closer, hanging on the edge of their seats. It felt like an eternity waiting for that moment to crystallize, the air charged with unspoken truths. I've seen how much this diner means to all of you. To Jason. To me too. A soft ripple of hope stirred in the room. Over the years, I've watched you all support each other. I've seen laughter fill these walls. I've seen friendships bloom over pancakes. But I've also seen fears and doubts. There was a noticeable cracking in his voice, something almost fragile. Jason clenched his fists, willing his father to embrace this moment. I have always believed in standing firm in our convictions. But I realize now that sometimes it's about who we stand with. His gaze shifted to Jason, his son, and for the first time, a spark of understanding flickered between them. And I want to stand with you. A powerful wave of support erupted. People clapped, whistled, and let cheer escape their lips like a breath they had all been holding. Jason's heart swelled with joy mixed with relief. His father was there, standing behind him, acknowledging the bonds they were fighting for. It was a culmination of years of distance shrinking under the weight of connection. Charles continued, his voice steadier now. We can't just accept this challenge. We can rise above it. I'll help. We'll make our voices heard. Tears brimmed in Mrs. Henderson's eyes, and Jason could see others wiping away their own. Thank you, Charles. Someone called out from the back, the warmth spreading like wildfire. For the first time, Jason felt truly in sync with his father. They shared something deeper now, a common purpose, a shared mission that transcended fear. But just as the exhilaration settled in, Jason's stomach twisted. They knew the battle would be hard. They wouldn't just be up against the town's opposition. They'd be pushing against ingrained prejudices. Waves of miscommunication headed their way. Discomfort lurked in the shadows, waiting to test their resolve. The chatter swelled again as voices filled the diner with new ideas about how to rally support, how to mobilize the town. There was laughter, a renewed sense of family. Yet a shadow fell across Jason's heart. What if the confrontation ahead turned ugly? What if, even with their unity, emotions boiled over? What if their hope faded away under the weight of the challenge to come? After the meeting adjourned, families lingered, their discussions settling comfortably over endless cups of coffee. Jason caught a glimpse of Charles chatting intently with Mrs. Henderson, her eyes twinkling with possibility. This was it, their moment. Yet unease had taken root as well. Later, when the diner had cleared out and just a few remained to help clean up, Jason turned to his father. We're not just fighting for the diner anymore, are we? It's bigger than that? Charles took a deep breath, running a hand along the edge of the counter. Yes, son. This is about acceptance. We're fighting for everyone who has ever felt alone. There'll be hard days ahead. Are we ready? That question hung in the air. Charles met his eyes and nodded slowly. We have to be. But there was little time to prepare. Another storm was brewing on the horizon, one that could threaten everything they just started to build. As Jason stepped outside into the cool night air, he couldn't shake the feeling that the real battle was just beginning. What awaited them next? Would the community rise to the occasion, or would they be met with resistance that posed a new set of trials? Taking a deep breath, Jason tried to envision the fight ahead, but his heart beat uncertainly. The future was a canvas yet to be painted, and he stood on the brink of a journey that would test every fiber of his being. The night felt charged with possibilities, but deep down he sensed it wouldn't be as easy as Tonight seemed. A storm was coming. Would they be able to weather it together? The next day dawned with a crisp freshness, but Jason felt no warmth from the sun. As he prepared for the meeting with the town council, he could feel nerves electrifying his skin. The diner was buzzing as usual, but the familiar comforting hum felt strained. Families were coming together, but a heaviness hung in the air. Charles walked in, coffee cup in one hand and a determined look on his face. Jason observed his father closely. Gone was the man hesitant to connect with his feelings. This was a man on a mission, ready to stand for something bigger. Yet the fear of the unknown flickered behind Charles's brave mask. "Are you ready?" Jason asked, trying to mask the tremor in his own voice. "I have to be," Charles replied, a hint of steel in his tone. They shared a moment that felt both grounding and terrifying. Jason understood then that the stakes weren't just about the diner, it was about changing hearts. Would they be able to convince others to see beyond prejudice? Just then Mrs. Henderson entered. "Morning, boys. Are you both ready to change the world?" Her optimism was infectious. The energy shifted slightly as people drifted in, pulling hope behind them like a beautiful banner. Jason took a deep breath, feeling a flicker of determination. As the hour approached for the meeting, the diner felt almost electric with anticipation. A group began to gather outside. A mix of supportive faces and skeptics, some bearing looks of curiosity, others of outright disdain. Jason's stomach churned. They were coming to witness a confrontation deeply rooted in community division and personal biases. Inside, the atmosphere was tense yet resilient. Town council member Mr. Avery had made headlines in the past for his thinly veiled comments against acceptance. He was a roadblock, a symbol of everything Jason feared. But this time, they wouldn't be silent. "Let us stick to our mission," Charles said, rallying the crew behind him. Jason nodded, catching the snippets of encouraging conversations among friends preparing to voice their stories. When they made it to the town hall, the room was crowded. Some eyes were familiar, but others were cold and judgmental. Jason gripped the podium, staring ahead. His fingers trembled slightly. "Thank you all for being here," he began, trying to keep the shakiness out of his voice. "We're here because we care about this diner and the community it represents. We believe in a place where everyone is welcome. This isn't just about business, it's about belonging." He looked around, meeting the eyes in the crowd. Some were glistening with recognition, while others flashed disappointment. Mr. Avery's eyebrows furrowed a wall built high. "We want to create a space that reflects acceptance and joy. I invite everyone here to open their hearts. Challenge your views." Jason could feel the rush of emotion welling inside him. But then he spotted someone in the back. The shadow of doubt loomed large. What happens if it all falls apart? What if the dangers you claim are just in your head? A voice called out, dripping with skepticism. A wave of murmurs followed, fear and defiance colliding in the air like a thunderstorm. Jason's heart raced. It was just the spark they needed. "But what if it's not just in our heads?" He called back, his voice steady now. "What if we're all missing a chance to be stronger together?" The room quieted, thinking. He could see Charles nodding, the fire igniting behind his father's eyes. "Everyone deserves a place they can call home," Jason continued, digging deeper. "This diner can be that home for those who haven't felt welcomed anywhere else. We're not here to fight against. We're here to create something beautiful to connect." The tension hung palpably. "Can we do it together?" he asked, reaching out his words like a lifeline. But as the silence bore down, Jason knew the battle was only just heating up. Would his desire for unity touch anyone's heart? Or would the walls come crashing down before their dreams had even begun? With eyes locked on Jason, Charles leaned in, barely a whisper. "What if they can change?" It was enough to keep Jason hopeful, but the shadows lingered. The stakes were higher than ever, and the community's heart was on trial. Would they unite? Or would they fall apart? The answer was still hidden, waiting to be revealed. Jason held his breath as the silence stretched, filled only with the soft rustle of uncertain movements among the crowd. 1,000 thoughts raced through his mind. Was he really making a difference, or was he just shouting into the void? The warmth of determination flickered like a candle in the pouring rain, and he had to cling to it, to foster it. He glanced around, noticing more faces shifting in their seats, exchanging glances. Some seemed to resonate with his words. Others, however, remained stuck in their disbelief, guarded like castles under siege. The tension was thick, making it difficult to breathe. He desperately wanted their hearts to soften. But how could he reach them when they had closed themselves off completely? Suddenly, a soft voice broke through the thickness of silence. It was Emily, a local teacher, and someone who had often brought her students to the diner for milkshakes and stories. "Jason," she called, confidently stepping forward. "You said this diner can be a home for everyone, but how do we make that happen?" Her question hung in the air, unanswered. But there was a glimmer of hope in the room. People were willing to engage. Jason felt a spark of affirmation. If they were asking questions, then they were ready to listen, to contemplate the change he was advocating for. "Great question, Emily," Jason replied, letting the warmth of her presence wash over him. "We make it happen by showing up together, by opening our doors and our hearts. We all have stories. Let us share those stories, listen, and learn from each other. It's not just about the diner, it's about building a community that stands united." Mr. Avery shifted in his chair, a skeptical eyebrow raised. "And who exactly do you want in this diner? What if the goals you have clash with other people's values?" A murmur rippled among the crowd. Jason's heart raced again, but he held his ground. This was the moment he had anticipated, and he would not back down. "Values change when hearts open up," he asserted. "We aren't asking anyone to forget who they are. We're just asking for respect and kindness. That's something we all can agree on, right?" At that moment, the energy in the room shifted. An elderly woman near the front, someone who had visited the diner since it opened, nodded slowly, her expression thoughtful. "I lost my husband not long ago, and he wouldn't have believed I'd ever step into a place so different. But I feel drawn here. There's something special about this diner." Her words chiseled away at the cold silence. One by one, others began to share their experiences, stories of struggle, of huddling together in hopes of acceptance. They spoke softly at first, testing the waters, but soon a wave of voices grew louder, each with its own weight, pleading for understanding. Jason felt the trembling walls beginning to soften. This was not an easy task. It was going to take time, persistence, and patience. But perhaps, just perhaps, they were on the brink of a breakthrough. "Together we can change this town," Jason said, each word laced with conviction. "One step at a time." As the crowd began to formulate their thoughts into a shared movement, he caught his father's gaze. Charles was beaming, eyes shimmering with pride. The fear that had once stricken Jason faded slightly, leaving room for possibility. Yet, just as the swell of hope built, a loud voice broke through, barking accusations laced with fear. "But what if it ruins everything we've built? What if by trying to include everyone, we lose what makes this place special?" The room stiffened, new uncertainty rippling through the air like a sudden gust of wind. Fear was still present, mingling with the courage that had risen in discussion. Would they be able to wrestle with these opposing forces? Or would history repeat itself, leaving them fractured once more? Jason took a deep breath, grounding himself. This wasn't finished, he could feel it. The battle for their diner, for their community, and for their hearts was far from over. His voice steadied again as he prepared to respond, knowing somehow it was a desperate, pivotal moment. They had opened the door, but would anyone walk through it? Little did Jason know, a confrontation awaited that would not just challenge their resolve, it would shake the very foundation of their beliefs and redefine community in ways they could never dream possible. Jason had never felt more exposed. The weight of his community's expectations pressed down like the thick summer air. He looked around, gauging reactions. Some faces reflected confusion, others anger, but he could also see a flicker of hope taking root. "Look," Jason started, his voice steady, "I'm not asking anyone to abandon their traditions. What I'm suggesting is to build upon them. We're not here to erase what makes this diner a cornerstone of our lives. We're here to expand that circle of warmth." Mr. Avery crossed his arms, still skeptical but silent now. Jason could sense the tension cooking in the room, a mixture of dread and anticipation. "Change is hard, I know," he continued. "But fear has driven us apart for too long. This diner, it has a soul. It belongs to all of us." The murmurs began again. This time less like an argument and more like a conversation. Conversations were what they desperately needed, an exchange of spirits rather than battles over ideology. Emily stepped forward again, her confidence seeming to ripple through the crowd. Jason speaks the truth, she said. My students have shown me how easily kindness can tear down walls. We have to start somewhere, and maybe it begins here. He caught sight of Harold, a retired firefighter who had spent years serving the town. Harold's face softened as he chewed on the words. I've known some of these walls my whole life. What do we do if we find ourselves uncomfortable? What if we step outside our comfort zones, and it just doesn't feel right? Jason hesitated, catching his breath. Discomfort is part of growth. Think about it like this: the best meals come from mixing ingredients you wouldn't usually pair together. Maybe that's what this diner needs. New flavors, new stories, richer experiences. The elderly woman nodded, sitting a little taller now. Life is too short to shut ourselves away from good things. I would hate to think my time here is defined by fear of the unknown. The crowd began to stir, each person considering the unfamiliar comfort of hope. They were on the precipice of something. But just then, a voice sliced through the air again. This is all nonsense. We build walls for a reason. Inclusion isn't always a good thing. Gasps echoed, and Jason felt a shadow loom over the bright moment they had begun to cultivate. The man who spoke had been a fixture in the diner for years. A deep-rooted part of its history. Anger coursed through the room again, and Jason could see fear gripping even those who had felt optimistic just moments ago. Why is the idea of inclusivity so horrifying? Jason countered, stepping forward, heart racing. Have we really forgotten that community isn't about shutting people out? What if by including everyone, we enhance what we already cherish? The environment felt combustible. Jason knew they were standing at a tipping point. Some in the crowd were visibly torn, eyes darting from Jason to the dissenting voice. The conversation was widening with raw emotion, alive with the potential for connection, or chaos. Please, Jason continued, his voice rising over the clamor. Look around you. A diner isn't just about coffee and pie. It's about the laughter we share, the stories we tell, and the shoulders we lean on. Can we dare to redefine what our space means? Silence, heavy and expectant, fell over the room. Jason stood ready, breath held tight, waiting for someone to make a move. And then the elderly woman stood, her hands trembling at her sides, eyes glistening. I bleed just like you. I hurt just like you. We all crave connection. If we could let the walls crumble, what might we discover together? Her words hung in the air like an echo, transformative and strong. Jason felt hope swell in his chest. Yet he also sensed cracks forming beneath the surface. Fear was not easily vanquished. Little did Jason know, in the weeks to come, decisions would need to be made, friendships tested, and the heart of their diner would be irrevocably reshaped. How far were they willing to go? And what sacrifices would they need to make to discover the true meaning of community? The tension clung to the air like smoke, thick and palpable. Jason's heart raced as eyes turned to the elderly woman. Her face, lined with a lifetime of stories, softened the hard edges of skepticism. She stood, trembling not from fear, but from the weight of all that hung in the balance. Who among us hasn't felt the sting of isolation? She asked, her voice quaking but resolute. I've watched this diner grow for decades, its walls closing in on those who dare to dream of something more. I refuse to let my fears define me. As a community, we can choose to open these doors wide, let the sun shine in, and bring in new lives. A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. Jason scanned the room, searching for encouragement, but finding an ocean of uncertainty. Some knuckles were white as fists clenched, others relaxed with curiosity. It was a delicate moment, a tightrope walk between the past and a future teetering on the brink of change. Listen, Jason interjected, attempting to cut through the rising doubts. We all come from different backgrounds. We've each faced our own struggles. But in those moments of vulnerability, isn't it beautiful how community can rise? Together, we can support each other, transform this place, let it breathe new life. The rhythmic tapping of a spoon against a glass broke the silence. It was Emily. What if we start small? Her brown eyes sparkled with determination. Host a community dinner, invite everyone. Let's gather around food, stories and laughter. That's how we start to weave our tapestry of connection. Nods began to circulate through the crowd. Encouragement sparked between hesitant faces. But will they come? Jason heard a voice from the back, cracking like a fragile shell. Perhaps that's the miracle. Emily replied. We can create a space that feels welcoming. A tapestry even the most fearful souls can find comfort in. Isn't that what the diner has always been, a safe haven for all? But what if they reject our hospitality? What if we get hurt? The dissenting voice interjected again, heavy with doubt. Jason stepped forward, channeling every ounce of hope within him. Yes, it's possible. But isn't it worth the risk? If we don't try, we might never know what amazing things could come out of turning fear into friendship. As if suddenly swept by a collective current, broken murmurs transformed to open breaths. Hope flickered in hesitance. Jason noticed Mr. Avery's shoulders relax, arms dropping to his sides. The old lines of mistrust etched into his brow seemed to soften as a smile broke through. All right, he finally said, voice gravelly but steady. If we come together like she suggests, I'm in. An eruption of agreement followed. Together, they echoed, one after another, each voice growing bolder, brighter, until it was a chorus that filled the room. Just then the door swung open, jarring the atmosphere. A gust of wind swept through, bringing with it a curious figure, a young man with vibrant colors in his hair, laughter bright as a sunbeam. He stepped into the diner, eyes wide with wonder, as if searching for something. The room, which had just breathed life into a new beginning, froze. Every eye turned toward the young man. A mix of trepidation and curiosity coursing through the crowd. What would they do now? Would the fire of hope dim at the sight of the unexpected? Or could this moment ignite a new dawn? The path forward remained uncertain, but the air buzzed with anticipation, every heart racing at the thought of what could be. Could they really embrace this change? More than that, could they embrace this newcomer? The room held its breath, eyes shifting between the colorful young man and Jason. Time seemed to slow, trapping potential in a single heartbeat. Jason felt an old fear rise, a fear of rejection, of ignorance shining through the eyes of those who had long carried their biases. The young man's grin widened, infectious like a summer breeze. Is this the famous diner everyone's been talking about? He exclaimed, naive to the heavy tension in the air. The sound of laughter bubbled up in response, breaking the anxious silence like a ray of light piercing through clouds. Old Mrs. Henderson was the first to step forward. We've been waiting for folks like you to join us. Her embrace opened the gate for belonging. As if drawn by her warmth, the young man stepped closer. I heard you're the kind of place that makes room for everyone. I'd love to help. His enthusiasm lit up the diner, a spark igniting the flames of unity. Jason exchanged glances with Charles, both realizing in that instant that the moment was shifting. This stranger, unburdened by the weight of expectations, was just what they needed. What's your name? Jason asked, feeling a surge of hope. Finn, he replied, eyes glinting with excitement. Well, Finn, we just had a little breakthrough here. We're planning a community dinner to bring us all together. Would you like to help us with that? Jason's voice held a mix of uncertainty and eagerness. Absolutely. What can I do? Finn's vibrant spirit threaded through the room, straddling the gap between anxiety and elation. As the evening wore on, the chatter slowly shifted from wary discussions of acceptance to conversations filled with laughter and plans. They began to forge connections with Finn at the center. He was embracing the heart of the diner, and in doing so, helped Jason's vision manifest in a way he hadn't dared to dream. Charles, standing alongside Jason, observed the transformation unfold. This is what it's all about, isn't it? He said, a glimmering in his voice. Making space for others, even when it's uncomfortable. Yes, Jason replied, feeling a radiant smile light up his face. This is the family I've always wanted to create. Not just for us, but for everyone who walks through those doors. The conversations began to bubble over with ideas for the dinner. Organizing tables, setting up decorations, sharing stories of their lives. The collective energy surged, lifting the weight off Jason's shoulders. Suddenly, a familiar face from the past emerged at the door. It was Michelle. a childhood friend Jason had lost touch with after he came out. The warmth in her expression was unmistakable, a gentle reminder of the connections he once feared were lost forever. "Jason," she called, eyes sparkling like she had found something precious. "Michelle." Jason rushed toward her, heart swelling with disbelief. "I didn't think you'd come. I heard about the community dinner, and I wouldn't miss it for the world. We've got some healing to do, don't we?" Her words struck a chord deep within him, sending waves of affection crashing through. That evening, as preparations buzzed throughout the diner, something profound shifted. The walls that had once separated so many hearts began to dissolve like chalk lines in the rain. Laughter echoed off the walls. Acceptance grew in every corner. And the diner glowed with the warmth of connection. On the day of the dinner, families gathered under twinkling lights strung across the diner, a mosaic of colors reflecting the vibrant tapestry of life. Plates mixed with tastes and stories, laughter mingling amongst shared memories. Jason watched with wonder as people from various backgrounds connected over food, creating a beautiful reality together. In that moment, as he felt Charles's hand resting comfortably on his shoulder steady, affirming everything Jason had fought for crystallized. They weren't just saving a diner. They were building a community, an embodiment of love and acceptance. With a sense of triumph and newfound strength, Jason looked at every smiling face gathered around them. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about a future filled with understanding and compassion. They made room for one another, breaking bread as a family does. At that moment, Jason understood that love, like the finest meal, is created with a blend of ingredients old and new, sweet and savory. And as the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a warm glow over the diner, Jason realized they had weathered the storm together. They had chosen acceptance, community, and love. With heartbeats united and hopes intertwining, they stood side by side, a testament to what happens when fear is transformed into courage, an everlasting reminder that together, they could overcome anything life threw their way. Now, my friends, this is your moment to become a part of this journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, and show your support for these powerful narratives. Comment your reactions and feelings about this heartwarming ending. And please, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now. Don't wait not even one more second to share this incredible journey. Remember, only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.